Alright, so I can see if I can do this whole video without touching my face. Stupid COVID-19. Anyhow, so we're going to do, in this one, Act 5, Scenes 3 and 4. We're getting to the end of the play. We have a series of short scenes that all kind of run together and build our momentum. So in this scene, the doctor has left the situation with Lady Macbeth and enters the room with Macbeth and servant. Right, and Macbeth says, "Bring me no more reports, let them fly all." Right, so he's come to realize that he's been getting reports that all these nobles are abandoning him, and he has resigned himself to, well, let him go, because I'm not afraid. Why should I be afraid? I have these prophecies that tell me that I'm essentially, invincible. When he has heard the doctor's medical opinion of his wife, Macbeth asks with his grim humor for a medical opinion on the state of the country. The doctor is allowed the same humor when he closes the scene. "Were I from Dunsinane away and clear, profit again should hardly draw me here." The situation is now so serious that only a sour joke, playing on Elizabeth's belief in the doctor's greed for gold, can ease the tension. And it doesn't do much to ease the tension. Right? So if you can imagine, Macbeth is hemmed in, and he talks about his wife a little bit, which we'll talk about in a second. But a servant comes in and gives him information on the state of affairs and tells him essentially there's an army of 10,000 people approaching, and he just treats the servant horribly. Right? So remember how Duncan and Malcolm are have a tendency to be good to their servants, to their subjects. He is not, right? He calls him a cream-faced loon, right? Alluding to the fact that his complexion is very light, simply because he's probably terrified, either of the advancing war, or more likely of having to face his tyrannical king and give him some really bad news. And again, he calls him a patch, right? Which is essentially a fool, because fools wear patched clothing, and wayface, right? So he just verbally abuses this guy, and all this guy's doing is his job, which is to bring him news. And then he, with this news, he says, "I am sick at heart." And he says here what is called an anagnoricism, which is in tragic literature, it's a moment where the tragic hero takes stock of his situation and draws some conclusions. And he says, "I have lived long enough. My way of life has fallen into the sere, the yellow leaf." Right, so things are drying up. "And that which should accompany old age, as honor, love, obedience, troops of friends, I must not look to have." So these are all the things that Duncan had, right? "But in their stead, curses, not loud but deep." So people hating him deeply, but not saying it out loud, right? So they're saying it behind his back. "Mouth honor," right, which is essentially lies and flattery. "Breath, which the poor heart would fain deny and bear not, and dare not." So those people who give him this insincere flattery would gladly deny it. Feign means gladly. Would gladly deny it, but are afraid to deny it. So, and then he turns to the doctor. So this anagnorisis, he comes to understand that he will never be Duncan. He will never be loved in the way that Duncan was loved, and he will never have all of the things that should accompany kingship in its old age. Anyhow, so he does. The doctor comes and they have a brief conversation about Lady Macbeth's situation. Right? He says, "Canst thou not minister to a mind diseased? Pluck from the memory a rooted sorrow." And the doctor says, "Therein the patient must minister to himself." So the state of your soul, or the state of your mental state, are things that you have to deal with. All he can do is heal your body. So Macbeth responds, "Throw physic to the dogs, I'll none of it." And then he puts on his armor, and then asks the doctor, said, "What rhubarb senna or what purgative drug would scour these English hence?" So asked the doctor for a remedy for the country. And rhubarb and senna are laxatives. So he's essentially calling the English, feces. That basically, how can I get this poop out of my country? Anyway, there's nothing he can do, and he resolves himself to fight. All right, the next scene's a very short scene. Enter Malcolm, Old Seward, Macduff, Ross, and various other minor nobles and soldiers. Right, and so they just essentially talk about what their intentions are. Right, so they get to Birnam Wood. Right, and Malcolm says to each soldier, "Let every soldier hew him down a bough and bear it before him. Thereby shall we shadow the numbers of our host to make discovery err in report of us." So he's going to have all of the soldiers cut branches off the trees and carry them in front of them so that they can't tell how many of them are approaching the castle. Right? Which, of course, is a fulfillment of the prophecy, right? Till Birnam Wood come to Dunsinane, right? And so Macbeth believes that the wood actually has to get up and walk. There's nothing that said it can't be brought, right? So other versions have had them make shields out of the wood of Birnam to bring forward. Other ones, I've seen one where they actually, set fire to Birnam Wood and it's blowing in the direction of the castle. So in one way or other, that wood is coming to Dunsinane. So we know that Macbeth is being had, and that we just haven't figured out what way that third prophecy is going to also be an equivocation. In any case, they decide the order of battle, and they're going to attack the castle. Right? So that's essentially where we leave off. Right? You'll notice here also that Seward is here, and his son is here. And his son is a warrior in training. Right? He's a young man who's been, training all his life to be a warrior, but this is going to be his first big battle.